Welcome back to another edition of Hope Rocks Recovery. My name is Joe DeFino, and I am the founder and executive director of Hope Rocks Incorporated. And on behalf of the entire Hope Rocks organization, we welcome you for coming. Hope Rocks Recovery is a program that came out of this particular issue of social and personal distancing that we're in, and it's designed to keep us connected. And this coronavirus, this situation that we're in, has really created major obstacles for individuals, families that are looking to connect and need to be connected in order to stay healthy, in order to stay safe, in order to stay on the right path. And so we've decided that we're going to take our very limited ability to use technology to kind of reach out, help, but more importantly, bring people in who will be very influential in the work that we are doing. In our sixth episode, we have Miss Tanya Stokes with us today, and Tanya is a warrior. She is the person for whom Hope Rocks really resounds, because what she represents and the future she holds, but more importantly, the power she holds in changing not only the shape of this epidemic, but the way the world moves and views each other is mind-boggling. And I want to bring her in and welcome her. Tanya, it is so good to see you. How are you? And welcome.
Hey, Joe.
It's good to see
got me in tears. That's really nice.
Well, it's the truth. It is the truth.
Thank you.
And I say that because in our journey together, what I find, and it comes more and more and more clear, is the individuals that walk the walk, no matter what. All right, let's say it's in teaching. The individuals that had a difficult time in school, no matter what the situation was, whether it's a learning challenge or a social challenge, they become the best teachers because they're able to reach in a manner that's a little bit deeper than those that maybe who have not. And, you know, I see it all the time. And I apply that same idea to individuals who have really stormed this journey of recovery and have figured out a way to continue to get up, to continue to try again, but most importantly, believe in this idea that there's something better for me. There's something better for me. And I find if we recognize that from a worldwide view, we would solve a lot of the problems that we have. So, Tanya, you're my hero. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. It's really nice to be on here. I have 3 cats, and they've all of a sudden wanted to come onto the screen.
That's great. Don't worry about them. They'll give us a little bit of visual stimulation, which is what we're needing.
You'll probably see them going back and forth.
Absolutely. So not to worry.
Okay.
Tanya, I'm going to go to a specific date, and I want you to tell me the significance of this date, okay? April 2nd, 2013. Why is that date important to you?
So, April 2nd, 2013 is the last time I have had a drink or a drug in my system. Yeah, I actually, not many people know that I actually started to try to get sober in January of 2013. I really started my journey then. And something happened. I don't even know what happened.
Right.
But I had gone back out one more night, and 4/2/2013 is the day I woke up and I was like, whoa, like, wow, something's got to change. Like, I can't keep doing that.
So continue to talk about it's not the last step, but that last time. What was it about that last time that made it the last time?
So there were a lot of things that led up to my willingness to get sober, and abstain from using drugs and alcohol. Up until probably about 2012, the beginning of 2013, the end of 2012, I was in a really sad shape. I'm going to have to backpedal because there's, with anyone's story, there's a lot of things that happen to get to a point of change. And I had been arrested a couple times. I was becoming more and more dangerous to myself and to others. I had lost my friends. My family had no idea what to do with me. I was depressed. And, I didn't even know about rehab. I didn't know about sobriety. I didn't know that life was possible with sobriety. And I didn't particularly, when I started this journey, I didn't particularly think about staying sober. I'm like, well, this is something new, but because of my situation, I had to, I couldn't work. I had come to a place where I just couldn't work. I didn't have any basic life skills left. And I had to get on social services. And Ulster County KSAC, Miss Lois Leahy, I love her. And she told me, she's like, Miss Stokes, she's like, you've been arrested a couple times. She's like, I want you to go get an assessment. I was like, that's a great idea. So I was very willing because I was so tired of the way I was living, about what I was putting my family through, of not wanting to live anymore. I knew I had really good potential somewhere down inside of me. And I knew in my heart of hearts, I did not want to live that way. So that's what led up to that.
So Tanya, we're talking about just over 7 years ago. And congratulations for that. And I say that with the deepest appreciation, because this is a different Tanya in 2020 than in 2019 or 2018 or 2017 or 2016. And it is a Tanya that is full of life. It is a Tanya that is full of hope. I mean, in looking at you and just the life in your eyes and your smile, it shows that recovery is possible, and the other side is far greater than we could ever imagine. Now, I ask you this: what is it that keeps you either stable, stationary, or moving forward? What keeps you from taking that step backward?
Well, I have to admit, I'm not a perfect person. And I'm constantly, I feel like every day it's kind of different. Sometimes I'm ahead of the game. Sometimes I'm going backwards. But I have a really great recovery community that I have formed around me. All of my friends, they don't drink. They don't use drugs. And we all really go, we all follow the same spiritual principles, of patience and tolerance and knowing that I'm being carried by something else. Kind of I don't want to get spiritual, religious, all that. But I have a really strong recovery community that helps me. There are other motivating factors. Because today I want to be the best person and the best person I can be. I have a 5-year-old little girl. She was really the one that put the fire under my butt. She makes me want to be a better mother. Makes me want to be a better person. Since having her, I've gone above and beyond. I have, completed my degree. I've looked into master's programs, all these different things. So there's a lot of motivating factors to keep moving forward.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Now, you touched on it, and Hope Rocks is not faith-based. It's not. What we're about is trying to provide individuals, families, community with, first of all, with the idea that there's a problem. Secondly, to really educate about the problem. Third, to empower us into being solutions to the problem. And then fourth, getting us out there to do it. And so whatever that takes, and you talk about there's a spiritual component, you talk about there's a support system. We don't shy away from anything, because we believe that there's work happening, and whatever gets somebody to that first step is important. So I want to just back up just quickly on, you talk about your great recovery community around you. How important is that? Can we do this alone?
I don't think I would be able to do it alone. I needed a complete change in the way I thought and the way I felt. A little side note about me is that when things get tough, I want to run away and I want to give up. And I don't want to do the tough things. But I have this really solid community that they have never told me to give up. They're like, you know what? We love you and we know you're capable of amazing things. And, we back you 100%. And guess what? You're not going to give up. I don't think I would have been able to do it with them, because they have loved me back to life. They have taught me how to be an adult and how to express myself in a normal way, and how to really process my feelings, and even validate the things I feel. Because I had a hard time, and I still have a hard time doing that on my own. So having this group of people and also to run my really great ideas around, I get some real great ideas, and I'm like, hey, let me tell you about this one. And they're like, I don't know about that.
So a support system is critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would make a support system? Are there specific qualities in that, or can that support system come in unlikely places?
Well, I think about, I think it comes from anything. Because you think about sports. You think about your teammates. They're my teammates, basically. My teammates of life. And I've been involved in church before, and they became my support system as well as my recovery support system. I have a 12-step support system. I also have a Friends of Recovery support system. I have a work support system. So you can have so many different support systems. It just depends on who you decide to put in that system.
The support system is, like you say, can be made up of anybody, as long as they are looking out for you and acting in your best interest, and that relationship happens where you do the same for them. You consider yourself a person of long-term recovery, and that is a shift, or it's not even a shift. It's a new way to look at individuals who are on this journey. You have shared something in the past, and I'm going to put it up now, about how important it is that we are mindful of the words that we use, and how we change our philosophy, not philosophy, our outlook, really. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that we have such a negative association with individuals who have battled some sort of an addiction, have some sort of mental struggle or challenge, or they're just we have categorized in a negative way, and we have a lot of work to do to shift that around and really say, by the grace of God go I, or by the grace of God go you, depending upon the circumstance. So I'm going to throw out a term, okay, and you're going to respond to it. Substance abuse. Substance abuse, is that a positive term, or is that a term that we can take a look at and say, maybe there's a better way? Maybe there's a better way to say that.
I've actually stopped saying substance abuse. I will say substance misuse or substance use. But abuse, you think of abuse, and you got to think of these terms as what people think about when they hear those terms. When I think of abuse, I think of child abuse. Right. I think of all types of abuse, and just shifting that a little bit gives it a little bit better connotation. Or I also have a puppy.
That's good. You got a lot of activity. That's great. So how about this? How about person in recovery versus former addict, former user?
See, I do. It depends on where I'm at. I will consider myself an alcoholic and an addict depending on which house I'm at, depending on which hat I'm wearing. I prefer to call myself a person in long-term recovery because, again, if you think, I actually do this, I teach the Recovery Coach Academy, and there's a part of the training is looking at the different words and saying, okay, when you see alcoholic, what do you think of? I think of homelessness. I think of, losing all their money. I think of, jail. I think of all those things. But when I think of a person in long-term recovery or just a person in recovery, that's so much more positive. A person who, and I've gotten it from friends of recovery because that's what we say, that I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means is,
How about this? Junkies, druggies, addicts.
Terrible. It's not that I don't support people who call them, if they want to call themselves that, it's okay. But it's still, the negative connotations that come with it. When I hear that word, what do I think? I do a lot of marketing. I sit in on a lot of marketing, and I'm able to give my opinion on what I think about it. And the first thing I look at are pictures and what I'm looking at. Am I seeing needles? Am I seeing pills? I'm like, that doesn't look pleasant. Recovery doesn't look pleasant when I look at those things.
Right. And you have you talked about pre-2013 and the challenges you faced and the things that you really didn't know where you would be, if you would be. And now you are really doing some tremendous work with a project called Rescue, correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I am the substance use disorder program coordinator for Ellenville Regional Hospital, and I oversee Project Rescue. Project Rescue, we offer buprenorphine inductions, which is Suboxone inductions in our emergency department to anyone that comes in post-overdose or in opiate withdrawals. So we've really improved the access to treatment. Now, and what happens is that someone could come in We can induct them as long as they score on what's called a COW score, which is a clinical opiate withdrawal screening. We can induct them onto buprenorphine, connect them with a peer who we have an agreement that they will be in another buprenorphine program within 3 days. So we have reduced, we have gotten rid of that barrier that people face to medication-assisted treatment.
So you are using all of your talents and skills to help other people discover theirs.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And we've actually, beautiful. With COVID-19, we've all gone remote. Right. I'm on more Zoom meetings than I've ever been on. And we were actually the first agency in Hudson Valley to launch virtual Narcan trainings. So immediately, when this first happened, when we first went remote about 6 weeks ago, I'm like, well, how are we going to get harm reduction supplies to people? Like, this is a huge trigger. We have isolation, we have panic, anxiety. And so it was actually me and my community health worker, Danielle, we just started delivering harm reduction supplies. We just took it upon ourselves. And it's kind of bloomed into these virtual Narcan trainings. And it's so awesome to be able to get the harm reduction supplies into the community, to the people who will use it, who might use it.
Let's talk about that now, because that is a major major step for when we talk about for the Hope Rocks in terms of engagement. It's a major step. You are partnering with Friends of Recovery Ulster County, right? Mm-hmm. And how can somebody get connected and get trained on Narcan using some of these remote availabilities that you have? How can somebody reach out to you or to the organizations that you're working with if they were interested?
So people can always go to Friends of Recovery Ulster County, the Facebook group. They can just search for that. They can also look up Ellenville Regional Hospital Rural Health Network. All of our virtual trainings are put on there. But also, this has been a county-wide initiative. So we have a lot of organizations that are involved in it. And they're actually going to be launching their own Narcan trainings, too. So, like Family Services in Kingston. I think Samadhi might be. I'm not sure who actually is, but I know that other people are considering it. So they will be popping up. We're actually going to be doing a regional one for like cross counties.
So reach out to those particular Facebook groups, organizations. We have your phone number up on the screen, and you'll be directed to a training. That is fantastic. Think about a year ago. Think about 2 years ago. Would this have been possible? And we're in the throes of something that is just unheard of, unprecedented. We just don't know what the future holds for us, and we're seeing high-ranking people, organizations starting to take notice of the recovery community, starting to take notice of the needs of the individuals who are in the throes and at risk, and the strains on the mental health community. So the hope is through these kind of uncertain times that we're going to be able to strengthen our ability to come together as communities, as counties, as nations, as a world, to really come to a better understanding of what's taking place. And in my opinion, the real epidemic. So maybe something good will come out of this, and I do believe that it will. And it's good to see that these particular things are being recognized with the impact that they are. I cannot see how you could ignore it, because it's been such a very devastating time for individuals who are at different points of their journey.
And let me tell you, Joe, like the 12-step community, they have been catapulted into the virtual world. I had someone from a different agency like, oh my God, what's happening to the 12-step? They must be suffering. I'm like, no, we're good. But like, it's really cool. I can be in my kitchen in New York and go to a meeting in California, or hear a speaker from Hungary. It's amazing.
It's
I went to 3 meetings last Friday night.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful.
And it's all the same across all the different recovery platforms. The Smart Recovery, I know the Y12SR, which is a yoga 12-step recovery, meditation, all the different. There's All Recovery also, which is another one. It's like all inclusive. Everyone has just boomed in this virtual reality.
And it shows that there's such a need for it, and there's a cry for it. And however, the personal contact cannot be replaced, and the necessity for that should not be overlooked. The work that you're doing is fantastic, and that's why I see you the way I see you, because and you, sorry about that, you are not just an individual who is trying to make your way in this life, but you're trying to make a way in this life and pick up those that you know what they're going through along the way. Do you ever feel like you would like to just shed the Tanya Stokes who's in long-term recovery and just become Tanya Stokes, or is it one and the same?
That's a hard question. I think a person in long-term recovery is just who I am now. And it's just keeps getting more and more levels to it, I don't know. There is a part sometimes, like the anonymity part, that sometimes I'd like to just go back to being a person among people. But at the same time, I understand that what I do in the recovery world is really important. And I don't know if that's my insecurities or not. That I'm like, no, that's enough. That back down, come on, But I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh, that's great. Not that I was worried about it, but I think sometimes we carry these wishes and desires to walk a different path than the one that we're walking. And I guess maybe that's where I was going.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because when I first got sober, I was big into like sobriety, like abstinence, no drug, no alcohol. And the more I've evolved in my recovery and in my professional manner, like I've just learned to love everyone for exactly who they are and where they're at. I've had to really deflate my ego when it comes to that, because I thought I was the tell-all, and no, it's either sobriety or not, but I'm just learning how restrictive that is and how that really keeps people away, and it goes against what I really want,
Right. It's all part of the maturation. It's all part of, I love the term recovery, but I like the term discovery better, because we get to discover who we are really, and through the journey that we're on. And I really, I admire the warrior in you, and that's why I use that term. We spent some time talking about the last time, the last time before you entered into this phase of recovery. Chris Herron, who I know you've seen speak, the famous basketball player, he talks about shifting our focus to the first time and preventing that first time. What are your thoughts on that? And do you remember the first time? Do you remember that first step to your problem?
That's a really interesting quote. Like I do remember, I like to say I do remember my first time, but I feel like it was like I was the kid who would steal liquor out of my mom's liquor cabinet, you know? And like, I don't ever want to go back to the mentality of that first drink. You know, the person who really was just really insecure and just wanted to cover up that anxiety and that couldn't handle life, you know, and couldn't handle people and situations. So I would never want to go back to that mentality when I first picked up, you know. My drinking, when I first started, like I had a lot of fun. And you hear that with a lot of people, that it started out fun.
Yeah.
But then it became fun with problems, and then it just became all problems.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I really like to hold on to that last use and that last drink, because that was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit on a point that I wanted to talk about. Part of this Hope Rocks recovery program, we've spoken to a number of different people in all different walks of life, all different areas of where they are today, where they got to where they are today, and so forth. One of which was Katie Tupin, who's a musician who we're going to be bringing up to Woodstock in October and do Hope Rocks with Katie Tupin. Well, Katie was talking about her journey, and she talked about when she was younger, she felt that there was something missing in her and needed to fill it with something. And when she was very young, she filled it with pets and animals. And when she got a little bit older, she filled it with something else. And then when she got into her teenage years, she filled it with alcohol. And she said, I wish, and others have said the same thing, I wish that I had a counselor or I had somebody in the school that I could talk to that would help me to understand. I knew there was something, but I couldn't identify it. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you think is worth pursuing, this ability to take our schools and maybe provide, maybe not official counseling, but those moments where you can open up with, as a teacher, you can open up with your students about these types of things, about what it is that they might be going through. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I think that was going so different than where I thought it was going. But I think it's really important to start in school and talking about it and talking, you know, looking at the different traumas that kids are facing too. And knowing that the traumas, and whether that be a parent's divorce, could be drug use. There are a lot of things that can lead to trauma in someone's life, especially a child's life, because they're very vulnerable. But the teachers being aware of that and teaching children how to cope, how to cope in a healthy manner,
Where did you think that question was going?
Hold on 1 second. Where did I think that was going? I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure now.
All right.
But I really think that it does start in school. I think that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about it too, because I think it should be talked about just like sex ed. It's uncomfortable. And that's the thing, is a lot of people are so uncomfortable to talk about it.
Right.
And they might think that, if we talk about it, it's going to make them do it.
And I've heard that. And I've heard that. I've heard that from people that are very high ranking in the educational world. And it's surprising. It is surprising. Okay, go ahead.
Real quick, where I thought I was going was about the counseling.
Yes.
About if you think that people should receive counseling, and because I started thinking about counseling when I was younger, because I started counseling from a very young age, and no one really ever talked to me about that except for when I turned 16, and my therapist was like, "You drink a lot, don't you?" I'm like, "Just in one setting, okay? That's it. I don't drink every day. I just drink a lot." But she was the first person to tell me, she's like, if you don't stop, she's like, you could turn into an alcoholic. And come on,
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to start it young.
Now, last night I received a phone call from an individual who had a family member revived the night before. He had overdosed and he was revived. And the phone call kind of was one in which where the individual was revealing to me that the person that overdosed came out of that emergency room really not quite sure that they wanted to change. So the individual that's talking to me is a family member and is just at wit's end and has no response for that. And how do we help? What can we do for those individuals who aren't quite ready to help themselves? Is there anything that we can do?
We just continue to love them, even though it's hard, and it's hard, and it's about putting up boundaries, and trying to figure out what boundary they can put that's not, you got to go. Or maybe that's what needs to happen, but working, I feel like when someone is using in our lives, and like I've had the same experience that I've had a friend using, and I become so consumed with what they're doing that I forget about myself. So I had to learn to set boundaries. Not that I didn't love this person, but I couldn't take what they were doing to me, and what not that they were doing to me, but what the situation was doing to me. So I had to really learn how to take care of myself and put the focus back on myself. Because it's so easy to get wrapped up in it. So easy.
You talk about boundaries and you talk about self-preservation, and we could go for hours on that. And sometimes those are the two areas that allow us to not get through our own battles while trying to save somebody else with theirs. And two quick things on that. First of all, I remember Darryl Strawberry, the famous baseball player. We had interviewed him a couple years ago when he came into town to talk about his addiction and his recovery journey. And I don't know if you remember when the Ryan Group brought him in. And he talked about his wife and how his wife put those boundaries on. She never stopped loving him, but did not put up with his behaviors. And such an important fact, because at the time he was not accepting that. But in looking back in hindsight, he said, if she didn't do that, I wouldn't be here. And so your point about boundaries is just so well taken. So well taken. A couple more things I'd like to talk about. How do we help those who are at risk because I work with young people, and I can tell in kindergarten, those individuals that are far more susceptible to risky behaviors than others. It's that clear in not just in it's amazing. How do we help those people? How do we, before they get into an unhealthy situation, how do we help them? What can we do for them?
I think about my own journey, and I think about, what helped me when I was young. And it was those people that provided that strong support, the people who loved me unconditionally. And I feel like that is so important with children growing up, is that stable person that person can talk to, that can keep the conversation going, that knows that, no matter what I say, I can trust this person. And, you even hear those stories, the person who's like 55 and they're like, I remember when I was 7 years old and I had someone tell me this, and now I remember, and now, I ran with it and here I am. And it's really being that person in someone else's life. And I think that's really important in children's lives too, to have that stable person, that's someone that support, that, you're going to do great things and you're amazing and, you can do anything, because the thing is that we don't know what children go home to.
Right.
We're not there.
Yeah.
It gives me goosebumps just thinking about that. So for that limited amount of time that we have them, we have to be boosting them up and telling them how amazing they are and telling them they're capable of anything, even though their behavior may be a result of whatever they're facing. They're still a good person, and they still have great potential, and they still could be anything and do anything.
Tanya, I want to thank you so much, because you are that person, whether you know it or not. I watch, in the time that I've known you, I watch you nurturing, supporting, helping, caring for, and really extending the arm of love to those that are willing to reach out for it. And that's why I have the greatest admiration, and that's why you are a warrior, and that's why I believe that this world will become better, exponentially better, when we give people the opportunity to discover themselves and we help them to do so, because so much potential is there. And I want to thank you for that. If you could just hold on a moment, I'm just going to make a couple of talk to the audience for a minute, and then I'll close with you, okay? Hang tight. Thanks. There. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Hope Rocks Recovery. I want to remind you that no matter what you're feeling, no matter the situation you may be in, whether you're a mom or a dad or a son or a daughter or an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, you're not alone. We have a community that wants to support you. We are, and I'm talking about the greater community. I'm not talking about just the Hope Rocks community, but there are people out there that they want nothing more than to be able to extend a hand and help you. You are not alone. If you need anything, please visit our Facebook page, our website, hoperocksny.com, or any of the websites that you've seen on the screen tonight, and reach out. Help is there. Not only is help there, an ear is there, an understanding is there, and you're not alone. And together we will help to realize each other's full potential. So on behalf of the Hope Rocks team, I want to thank you for Hope Rocks Recovery. And Tanya, thank you so much once again for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at the Hope Rocks Festival, which we are full steam ahead for on August 29th and 30th. So again, you're doing the great work, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Take care.